Welcome, curious minds. Today we're inviting you into a story that's, well, it's deeply disturbing, incredibly complex. It often defies easy explanation. We're talking about the harrowing and ultimately tragic love story of Zach Bowen and Addie Hall. And this isn't just, a standard true crime narrative. It's really a deep dive into the human mind under extreme duress. It reveals some really unexpected ways trauma can manifest and how lives that seem, well, maybe not ordinary, but understandable can unravel into just unimaginable horror. We've sifted through the available sources, including a pretty detailed YouTube documentary transcript, to bring you the core insights. Our mission here is to unpack the intricate layers of their lives, their really intense relationship, and the factors that led to such a shocking, horrific end. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding the deeper currents beneath the surface of this tragedy.
This story, perhaps more than many others, it really serves as a chilling illustration. It shows how this unique mix of external chaos, like Hurricane Katrina, can temporarily mask, but actually end up exacerbating these deep-seated individual traumas. It sort of creates this shared delusion that just collapses once reality bites back. It's a stark reminder, really, of the profound, often incomprehensible complexities of human psychology.
Absolutely. And to really get how their lives collided like this, we need to start with Zach Bowen's path. It was turbulent from the beginning. Born May 15, 1978 in California. Zach and his brother Jake, they were raised by parents who were quite free-spirited, nomadic even, so their early years. Constantly on the move, no real permanent home. That instability became a theme, really. And it got worse when his parents divorced in 1990. Zach was only 12 then. Okay, so fast forward to his teenage years. Zach grows incredibly tall, like over 200 centimeter size, 53 shoes. Massive guy. You'd think that would bring confidence, maybe. But no, surprisingly, he was deeply insecure about his height. Felt like an oddity, a giant.
Right, and that often leads people to compensate in other ways.
Exactly. He worked hard at being funny, charming, charismatic. He just desperately wanted acceptance, wanted to be popular. And this need for validation really peaked in 1995. He's 17, final year of high school. He gets nominated for Homecoming King. And for him, this title was everything. The ultimate proof of being loved, accepted by his peers. He wanted it badly, but he lost. And the disappointment was so crushing, so profound, that he actually dropped out of high school. Just vanished 1 year before graduating.
Wow, such an extreme reaction to what seems like a high school disappointment.
It really shows you where his head was at, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So after dropping out, he moves in with his estranged dad, ends up in New Orleans, thinking maybe he'll finish school there. But nope, he drops out again, lands a job as a bartender instead. And it's at this bar he meets Lana Zupak. She's 27, a stripper from Texas, Zach. He's only 18, but he tells her he's 28.
A significant age difference and a lie to start things off.
Right, but they fell hard and fast. Intense, whirlwind romance, that kind of thing. Pretty soon after, Lana finds out she's pregnant. She's worried, understandably. I mean, Zach's just a kid in her eyes. But Zach, he steps up, or says he will. Earnestly promises to be a good father, take responsibility. So they get married. They have 2 children. Jackson, born in 97, and then a daughter, Lily. But, a bartender's salary. It wasn't cutting it for a family of 4. So in 2000, Zach makes a big decision. He joins the U.S. Army, primarily for the financial stability, it seems. 3 years later, 2003, he's deployed to Iraq. And this is where things take another really dark turn. The war just took an immense psychological toll on him. Daily combat, seeing friends die right in front of him. Horrific experiences.
The kind of experiences that fundamentally change a person.
Absolutely. And there was one specific incident that haunted him. Iraqi boy Zach had befriended, the boy and his whole family were killed. Killed because they had had contact with American soldiers. And Zach blamed himself entirely. Felt directly responsible for their deaths.
And this is where something like PTSD comes in, but it's more complex too. We talk about moral injury. It's not just the fear or the flashbacks, though those were likely there. It's that deep sense of guilt, the feeling of having violated one's own moral code. His self-blame for that family's death, it probably went beyond typical guilt. It likely shattered his sense of self, his trust. It explains the dramatic shift.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because when he was discharged in 2004, he was, as you said, a completely different person. Went from cheerful and outgoing to quiet, anxious, deeply negative. Severe depression, terrifying nightmares of combat, and this massive personality shift. Well, it ultimately led to his divorce from Lana.
The strain must have been unbearable.
For sure. That concept of moral injury, it really resonates. You wonder how much that just stayed with him, festering? But Zach's story, as tragic as it is only half of this equation. Because across town, another person carrying deep scars was also trying to start over in New Orleans. Addie Hall. Addie was born January 15th, 1976 in Durham, North Carolina, and she was, by all accounts, a very artistic soul. Loved painting, poetry, sewing, even taught dance. A real free spirit, almost like a modern hippie type.
But often that kind of outward expression masks inner turmoil.
Precisely. Her childhood was the polar opposite of her artistic nature. Grew up in a violent family, and she was a victim of sexual abuse. Just awful. And this trauma, it shaped her adult life. Friends said she had a history of toxic relationships, often drawn to abusive partners. Understandably, this made her incredibly guarded, especially early on in relationships. Didn't trust easily.
A common defense mechanism after trauma.
Right. And on top of all that, Addie suffered from undiagnosed bipolar disorder. Her friends noticed these extreme mood swings, intense highs, full of energy but also irritability, crashing down into severe lows, deep depression. And alcohol, which she used heavily, just made it all worse. Fueled the mood swings, made her volatile, hot-tempered.
That combination, trauma, potential bipolar disorder, substance use, is incredibly challenging, especially when undiagnosed and untreated.
Yeah. So seeking a fresh start, trying to escape that past, Addie moves to New Orleans, and she starts working at the same bar as Zach.
And this is where their paths finally cross.
Exactly. So Zach and Addie meet as colleagues. Addie initially very skeptical. She saw Zach as maybe just another charming player type, all smooth talk, and her history made her wary of that.
Understandable given her past experiences.
But Zach was persistent. He'd hang around after his shifts, talk to her, showed her consistent kindness, apparently, and eventually she let her guard down. He won her over. And they kicked off this whirlwind romance. Their early relationship, it just ignited. Super intense passion, but also fueled by constant partying, heavy drinking, drug use. They seem to just dive headfirst into this shared, extreme lifestyle.
A pattern may be rooted in escapism for both of them.
Seems likely. But then, just as this intense bond is forming, something massive happens. Something that changes everything in New Orleans. Only weeks after they started dating, August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hits. One of the most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history. Total devastation. Lana, Zach's ex-wife, she pleads with him. Come evacuate with the kids. Help take care of them. It's a crisis.
The responsible thing to do, arguably.
You'd think. But Zach refused. He chose to stay in New Orleans with Addie. He saw it, or maybe framed it, as a chance to prove their love by weathering the storm together.
Wow. It's quite a choice.
Isn't it? Now, while huge parts of the city were just destroyed, their apartment, relatively untouched. And here's the weird part. Zach and Addie didn't just survive the chaos, they seemed to thrive in it. No work, no responsibilities, no rules. It became this endless party for them. They totally cut off contact with their families, who were frantic, thinking they might be dead. Instead, they're joining other survivors, camping out, building bonfires, stealing booze for these impromptu street parties. Zach's even playing bartender for the community.
Almost living out some kind of post-apocalyptic fantasy.
Totally. And amidst all this chaos and survival, something truly bizarre happens. They find fame. Local media latches onto them, dubs them the king and queen of Hurricane Katrina survivors.
Which, considering Zach's earlier desperation for acceptance and recognition...
Exactly. It fulfilled that deep-seated desire in this really strange, intense way.
So if we zoom out for a second, that shared trauma, surviving Katrina together, it likely forged this incredibly potent, maybe almost delusional bond. It fed right into their escapist tendencies, didn't it? Creating this powerful codependent dynamic, isolated from normal life. But that kind of intensity, built on crisis, it's rarely sustainable when things go back to normal, right? You mentioned the harsh return to normalcy. How quickly did things fall apart?
Almost immediately, it seems. The return to normal life after Katrina was incredibly jarring for them. That whole king and queen fantasy just evaporated. And they really, really struggled to adapt back to everyday life, jobs, responsibilities.
Your bubble burst.
Pretty much. And their relationship started to sour, fast. Addie became intensely jealous, apparently very cold towards Zach's kids when they visited. Zach, on the other hand, became increasingly possessive, constantly accusing Addie of cheating on him at work, especially if she danced with or entertained customers. Just paranoia kicking in.
Classic signs of a relationship under immense strain, amplified by their individual issues.
Absolutely. They fell deeper into that toxic cycle. More drugs, more alcohol, trying to escape back to the Katrina days that just weren't coming back.
Yeah.
And Zach's PTSD symptoms got much worse. Severe nightmares, reliving combat, seeing friends die over and over.
The trauma resurfacing as the external crisis faded.
Yeah. And one night, heavily drunk, in a rage, he lost control. He physically assaulted Addie. First time he got physical, she broke up with him right then, kicked him out. Done.
But these cycles rarely end so easily.
You're right. Just weeks later, Zach's back, pleading, I can't live without you, that kind of thing, begging her to take him back. And Addie, despite everything, she relented. She let him back in. This became their pattern. Intense fights, breakups, Zach's desperate pleas, reconciliations. Sometimes the police even got involved. Just chaos.
A deeply destructive pattern.
And then things got even messier. Zach had an affair with a man. He later revealed this to Addie, along with admitting his bisexuality. Addie was understandably furious, deeply hurt by the infidelity, and maybe especially that it was with a man.
Adding another layer of complexity and betrayal.
Right. And she decided she wanted revenge, real revenge. So she comes up with this plan. Zach had paid the deposit and 2 months' rent for a new apartment at 826 North Rampart Street. But Addie, without telling him, signed the lease only in her name. Her plan: evict him. Leave him totally broke and homeless.
That's incredibly calculated. A major escalation.
Definitely playing hardball.
So reflecting on this whole downward spiral, how did those individual traumas, the PTSD, the possible bipolar disorder fueled by the substance abuse and that whole intense post-Katrina lifestyle, how did it all converge into this incredibly destructive, codependent, violent cycle? It really seems to mirror what we often see: external stress piling onto unaddressed internal vulnerabilities. It just erodes everything: self-control, moral boundaries. It becomes this dangerous feedback loop. Trauma leads to self-medication, which fuels aggression, leading to more psychological unraveling.
It's a terrifying combination. And by October 2006, things were really off the rails. Zach finds out about Addie's plan with the lease. His behavior becomes even more erratic. He quits his job, starts partying even harder, just constantly out. And around this time, Addie just disappears, vanishes. Her friends are immediately concerned. They know Addie. She wouldn't just leave New Orleans like that without a word, without contacting anyone.
Especially given how much she apparently loved the city.
Exactly. So they ask Zach, where's Addie? He tells them they had another huge fight, broke up again, and she moved back to North Carolina. But her friends, they didn't buy it. It felt wrong, suspicious. Then, October 17th, 2006, the grim discovery. Zach commits suicide, jumps from the roof of a hotel. Police identify him pretty quickly from his military dog tags.
A tragic end, but the horror was far from over.
Not even close. Because on his body, tucked into a Ziploc bag to keep it dry, police find this note, a truly chilling note. It starts, "This is not an accident. I want to die to pay for the life I took." It explicitly directs police to the apartment, 826 North Rampart Street. Says they'll find his girlfriend's body on the stove, scattered in the oven, and in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
It also mentioned his full confession would be found there too.
Just laid out for them. Unbelievable.
So police rush to the apartment. First thing they notice inside, it's freezing, like 15 degrees Celsius, 59 Fahrenheit. They figure Zach cranked the AC way down to try and preserve the body. Place is a mess. Beer cans, cigarette butts everywhere. And then the messages, spray painted in black on the walls. Things like, "I am a failure. Please help me stop this pain. I love her. Call Lana Bowen, his ex-wife." And then, chillingly, look in the oven.
Leading them right to it.
Right to the kitchen. And on the oven door itself, another message: don't look. But of course they had to look. And what they found was just beyond horrific. Inside the oven, on a tray, cooked human legs. On the stove, 2 pots. One contained a cooked human head, apparently so overcooked it was barely recognizable. The other pot, cooked human hands and feet. And finally in the refrigerator, they found Addie's torso wrapped up in a black trash bag.
It's almost impossible to comprehend that scene. The sheer desecration.
Utterly gruesome.
Yeah.
The autopsy later confirmed the remains were Addie Hall. And crucially, it also confirmed Zach did not eat any part of her. There was no cannibalism.
So the cooking. It was likely an attempt to deal with the body, maybe reduce the smell, make disposal easier. A desperate, horrific attempt to hide the crime.
That's the prevailing theory, yeah. A notebook found at the scene contains Zach's full confession. He wrote that he choked Addie to death back on October 5th, during that fight about the apartment lease, right after she told him she was kicking him out. And his statement, it's chilling. He felt no fear, no guilt during the act itself, only like a detached concern about his lack of remorse.
A profound disconnect from the act itself.
Totally. And after the murder, between October 5th and his suicide on the 17th, he spent his last $1,500. Spent it on lavish food, drugs, strippers, parties, just living it up, essentially, in his final days before ending his own life. And one last disturbing detail from Zach's autopsy, they found 28 distinct cigarette burns on his body.
Self-inflicted.
Believed to be self-inflicted, yes. Each one thought to symbolize a year of his life, 28 years representing what he saw as his personal failures. Dropping out, the Army discharge, failed marriage, and finally, the murder.
That is wow. The extreme lengths of the disposal, the cooking, and then this final act of symbolic self-punishment with the burns. It really speaks to a mind pushed absolutely to its breaking point. Grappling with severe mental illness, the substance abuse, it leads to this complete disconnect from reality, from morality. It's a horrifying illustration of a total psychological collapse where self-punishment and this grotesque attempt at control manifest in these truly macabre ways.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, the sheer horror of the crime led to a lot of local speculation in New Orleans, especially about the apartment itself, 826 North Rampart Street. A theory emerged that the apartment, or maybe the room directly below it, was located above an old voodoo ritual site. And this led some people to believe that, maybe supernatural forces were at play, influencing Zach's actions.
It's an understandable reaction, perhaps, when faced with something so inexplicable, trying to find an external cause for such darkness. But, while New Orleans definitely has that rich voodoo history, law enforcement, psychological experts, they firmly dismiss that kind of explanation. Instead, the focus remains squarely on Zach's severe, untreated PTSD, his depression, all massively compounded by the heavy alcohol and drug abuse. Those are seen as the primary drivers. This case really becomes a profound, tragic warning about what happens when serious mental health issues and substance abuse go neglected, unaddressed. The consequences can be utterly devastating. Seeking supernatural answers sometimes distracts us from the very real, very human suffering underneath.
That's a really important point. And then years later, the story took another strange twist. About 6 years after Zach and Addie died, a woman named Margaret Sanchez, who had actually been friends with both of them, committed a disturbingly similar crime. A murder dismemberment of a stripper named Joannica Rosehart.
Wow, really? The similarities must have raised eyebrows.
Oh, absolutely. It led some people to wonder if maybe Margaret had been involved in Zach and Addie's deaths somehow. Maybe she was the real killer and framed Zach, or they were involved together. All sorts of theories popped up. But it's important to state the official conclusion never changed. It remains that Zach Bowen was the sole perpetrator in Addie Hall's murder.
Just another layer of grim coincidence or connection in this already dark story.
Exactly. And here's maybe the final truly surreal detail today. That apartment, 826 North Rampart Street, including the room below it. It's now a true crime museum. You can actually go there as a tourist attraction.
Seriously.
Seriously. And apparently the original oven and the pots found at the scene, they're still on display there.
That's incredibly macabre. Turning such a horrific scene into an exhibit
speaks volumes about our fascination with true crime, maybe. Anyway, it's a startling final note on this case. So we've traced this really complex, harrowing journey through Zach and Addie's lives. We've seen how their individual vulnerabilities, the childhood trauma, the mental health struggles, the substance abuse collided with the unique pressure cooker of post-Katrina New Orleans. It all just built up until it erupted in this unimaginable tragedy.
And connecting it back to the bigger picture, this case just screams about the critical importance of mental health awareness, about early intervention, about having robust support systems in place for people grappling with trauma, with addiction. It's a devastating example of the consequences when these deep personal struggles go unaddressed, not just for the individuals, but for everyone their lives touch.
So, what does it all mean for us listening to this? Maybe it makes us consider how we as a society can better support people like Zach and Addie before their lives completely unravel. What responsibility do we have to look past the surface, to see the unseen struggles that might be driving these seemingly inexplicable, horrific acts? This case is a stark reminder that sometimes the monster isn't some external supernatural force. Sometimes, tragically, it's the untreated darkness within ourselves. We really hope you found this deep dive both informative and definitely thought-provoking. For more explorations into these darker corners of human experience, you can find us over on Horror Docs. Please do consider giving us a like, a share, or subscribing if you found this valuable. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and keep asking those difficult questions.